Today we're here to launch the second Nashville Region's Vital Signs, which is an annual snapshot of the assets and the challenges facing our region. Last year when we released the inaugural report with you all, the leaders of Montgomery County rightly pointed out that the region really isn't complete without the Clarksville MSA. And I want to thank Mayor McMillan and Mayor Bowers for undertaking an effort to create vital signs for their MSA, but as you will see in our report, for the first time ever, their participation has created the opportunity for us to take an economy that has adjacent MSAs and understand why those two MSAs work together synergistically. There are 8 communities around the nation that have that same characteristic, MSAs that are adjacent to each other, only 8. And as we all know, the Clarksville MSA and the Nashville-Murfreesboro-Franklin MSA do definitely interact with each other, but people have never really understood those dynamics. So the undertaking that took place in Clarksville and that MSA has enabled us to understand those synergies and really provide groundbreaking information and research on a national level to other places that have that same characteristic. So Mayor McMillan, thank you for your engagement on that. So with that having been said, Chris Karboyak is the chair of the Vital Signs Action Teams, and she's going to come up and make some comments prior to our presentation of the new data. And of course, we'll be here for whatever time is necessary to answer anyone's questions. But would you welcome Chris Karboyak?
It's been a privilege to be a part of the Vital Signs Action Team, and I just want to maybe set the stage a little bit and provide a few reminders of what exactly the Vital Signs project is all about. There are 2 components to Vital Signs. The first is the annual snapshot of how our region is doing. And that's critical because it's important for us to know where we are if we're going to figure out where we're going to go in order to maintain the quality of life that we enjoy here in Middle Tennessee. The second is the action that happens in between these annual meetings and in between the report releases, which this is the second. You know, after last year's report release, 3 priority areas for regional action were identified. And those emerged from the data that was contained within that report. It was also based on the feedback that we received from the mayors in this room. The 3 items were increasing the number of adults with a post-secondary credential, improving our regional transportation systems, and enhancing the health and wellness of all of our residents. Out of those 3, increasing the number of adults with a post-secondary credential became an immediate priority item for action. To begin the work of identifying regional opportunities for action, we held 5 regional convenings in Williamson, Sumner, Robertson, Wilson, and Cheatham counties. And these convenings were co-hosted by the mayors that are here in this room today. We also hosted a post-secondary strategy discussion with the Rutherford County Chamber and members of the Rutherford Works Executive Committee. In all, we heard from about 150 leaders. Throughout all of these discussions, 2 opportunities for regional action surfaced. The first was around Tennessee Promise. We were hearing that Tennessee Promise was a great opportunity to expand the accessibility of education after high school. However, we also heard that there was work to do to ensure that the region could fully take advantage of this opportunity for its students. The second opportunity was around adult learners. While we heard a lot about the positive impact of K through 12 reforms, we also heard loud and clear that we would not be able to meet the governor's Drive for 55 goal without also focusing on adults. In September, we held a follow-up convening to bring together a cross-section of leaders from throughout the region. And at the end of the meeting, the group committed to 3 regional action items. The first was to put together a Nashville Region's Drive to 55 dashboard. The dashboard you see shares 2 components: each county's progress in the number of students applying to Tennessee Promise, as well as their progress in recruiting mentors who will guide these students throughout the year. To ensure that each county has a fair goal, we focused on the, quote, college non-going rate. In other words, those students who have not traditionally taken additional steps in their education after high school. The mentor goals are set by the state for each county. The Drive to 55 office provides the data for the dashboard, and this dashboard will be updated to include other indicators that measure students' persistence in the program, their enrollment in college next fall, and ultimately their completion in a community college or a technical school. The other 2 regional action items that the group committed to were, first, marketing to adults with some college, no degree, and 2, the creation of an educational attainment network to track our region's progress toward improving the number of adults with post-secondary degrees. That group, which will initially be composed of the group that identified these regional action items, will convene in January. But before we move on, I want to take a moment to specifically call out and thank Ron Corbin of RBBC Holdings and Joey Hatch of Skanska for their considerable leadership in these priority areas. Thank you, guys. I'd also like to thank the other action team leaders who lent their time and expertise to the regional convenings. Corrine Bergeron of Jackson National, LaShane Greenhill of Sargent's, Marianne Howland of IBIS Communications, and Deneen Torr of Dollar General. A round of applause, please, for them. Without their efforts, energy, and commitment, we would not have arrived at our regional opportunities for action. That's all I have to share with you today, so please allow me to ask Dr. Randy Lowry to the stage.
We're going to have some presentation in just a moment, and I want you to be thinking about 2 or 3 questions as we have that. Questions that will be a part of our very, very quick discussion, but vital. One is, I want you to be thinking as this information is presented about just the ideas that jump out at you. There'll be a lot of ideas presented. Be thinking about the 1 or the 2 that is either surprising, interesting, or something, and we'll try to pick up on some of those. I also would like you to be thinking about the context, and particularly which of the ideas that are presented to you are ideas that really demand a regional response. Obviously, there are many things we can do, but there's a special place for you folks as the leaders of our region to be thinking about those that require a regional response. And then finally, I'd like you to be thinking about what the next steps might be. We leave here as the recipients of this tremendous investment of time and of work, and we don't leave here to just walk out of the room today. We leave here wanting to have an agenda for the very next steps. We walk together, we work together, we're making a better region of our country, but it doesn't stop here today. So if you would be thinking about those 3 areas, we will have a quick 20-minute conversation, but it's really vital that you hear each other at least briefly for the future of this work. Let me also share that we're pleased as Lipscomb University to be a part of this. The reality is, as I live my life, and I'm sure you live yours, information is absolutely critical to being successful, whether it's a huge project or it's something as simple as appearing before the next group at lunch. Information's vital, and these folks have been extraordinarily generous, and we are especially pleased to be a part of this effort.
Well, it is a great pleasure to present a snapshot of the findings from Vital Signs 2014. Your encouragement and involvement with Vital Signs from its first release helps to reinforce the importance of tracking indicators and measures of our region's performance in key areas. Vital Signs here in our region is a part of a major international effort. This week around the world, many regions will be releasing their Vital Signs research and data on their own areas. Our being a part of this international effort means that we join with other regions in looking to the future, building on unique assets, and striving for innovative solutions to challenges. This group of leaders here today, assembled, knows the region best, and it's with pleasure that we share the findings from the new report. This year, you'll see new features and information that further explore the region in numerous theme areas and topics combined with added levels of geography and data. Vital Signs 2014 is, in fact, a vital listening and a vital reporting instrument for this region. Our region is made up of many abundant assets that are the pride of each of us. These form the basis from which our region remains strong, competitive, and able to turn challenge into opportunity. A first and very significant asset of our region is its unique characteristic. As Ralph has mentioned, introduced this year throughout Vital Signs is a focus on the joint metro region. The Nashville MSA and the Clarksville MSA represent two metro areas adjacent to one another. This side-by-side presence of two metro areas with key central cities is less common in the United States and allows us to highlight those important ways that the two metro areas interact with one another and bring unique and important assets and qualities in their own right to the larger region. Why is this important? Certainly, we recognize that our region has long been a magnet for migration into this area. Over the past decade, large numbers of persons from many parts of the country have chosen this region to call home because of its opportunities. The data on the left on the slide illustrates the migration into and out of the Nashville MSA from 2000 through 2010. Note that Nashville is not listed since it portrays movement of persons into and out of this area. Also, the net result is included from each area. We also see in this the important dynamic at work in the joint metro region, with the military population, for instance, of the Clarksville area as one unique and important asset that benefits the entire region, that contributes to population growth and economic gain for all of us. On the right is the net migration level adjusted for population size among the metros. In fact, among the largest metro areas in the country, the Nashville MSA ranks 5th for net migration per capita and performs very well against the peer set of metros that are featured throughout Vital Signs. For every 1,000 residents of this area, a typical recent year saw 12.2 newcomers from around the nation. We here recognize the vital role that economic diversity plays in making and keeping this region competitive. It's a very key asset for us. In fact, 3 elements stand out. One, that our base of business is diverse across many sectors, that our share of self-employment, non-employers, or entrepreneurship is very high. In fact, it's 23% in this area compared to 18% nationally. And third, as shown, that our entrepreneurial activity is growing at a strong pace and growing across industries in both of the metro areas. A glimpse at the firms of corporate America and the world and how they've chosen this region for relocation and expansion speaks loudly about the diversity of business that continues to grow here. In this respect, our region's major asset of a thriving and diverse business community continues to grow over even the past year. In the past week, our region celebrated a record year of job growth recorded that was unmatched in our history as a region. The left-hand column illustrates net job growth in our area for a full decade. And the bars on the right show the levels of jobs announced across our region from relocation and expansion of business. The total net increase in jobs for this period now exceeds 150,000 persons, indicating the asset of business that creates opportunity and sustains a strong regional tax base. But what in turn does that also mean? The per capita income gains are a key measure of regional success. Vital Signs illustrates that this region now has income levels mirroring the national average and bettering our peer metro areas. It's a remarkable growth as well because data also shows that these income levels have moved up notably in recent years as new diverse business and occupations have expanded in number in our region. Lastly, but very importantly, Vital Signs notes a key asset that we all enjoy. As income levels remain strong and rising, so also the discretionary spending opportunity is remarkable for residents of our region. Lower the national cost of living and expanded income gains translate to a major asset for residents and newcomers attracted to the opportunities of the joint metro region. But then Vital Signs delivers a balance of tracking indicators recognizing the assets that showcase our superlative performance, as well as those matters we know remain challenges for us. Since 2013, in the first Vital Signs, action has emerged on key topics and will continue to be a focus of attention for which Vital Signs serves as a catalyst. A profound backdrop to our region is one that our society at large finds as a major change and challenge because of the demographic forces at work in society. An aging society means ultimately fewer workers. This region has long benefited from in-migration of population, as we've already seen. The imperative now is to consider our several challenges and how these together can be solved to ensure we are the quality region that we all enjoy and that newcomers continue to seek out. The data show that our current workforce surplus rests partly on the remaining heightened levels of unemployed that require jobs. However, shortly after mid-decade, there will be fewer new workers available under current conditions, and by the 2020s, that shortfall will continue to expand. A challenge woven into much of our region rests on our ability, one, to ensure that we have the talent needed for our diverse economy, and two, that our region is as attractive in every way to us and to arriving talent in a landscape where our peer metros also compete more intensely than ever. Moreover, data remind us that skills for jobs are changing. The graph shows in the blue bars the distribution of current workforce according to the minimum education required for jobs. For instance, 25% require less than high school for current jobs, the labor force of today and of yesterday. 45% require at least high school. Additionally, nearly 1 in 5 require a bachelor's degree, and so on. The orange bars, however, illustrate the distribution of jobs in the current decade on through 2023. Fewer and fewer jobs will be available that require high school or less. More and more new jobs will require post-secondary skills, associates, bachelor's, and even advanced degrees. Vital Signs notes that we all do, or should, recognize the value in a college education. 61% of students here currently at least begin college after high school. Still, only 6 of the 15 Tennessee counties in our region exceed the state average for going to college. There are challenges, and important challenges, for our region to face quickly to remain fully competitive. Fortunately, many residents are aware of this challenge. Vital Signs again undertook a region-wide poll of residents, randomly sampled throughout all of the counties. These findings supplement and support and inform the data throughout the Vital Signs report. In the survey, nearly 4 out of 10 respondents with some college but no degree believe that they do need more education to be successful. Another 4 out of 10 with high school or less recognize they need to continue education to participate more fully in the economic life of the region. Where does all that put the American dream for our region? There are challenges to make sure that every person finds opportunity to be successful in the joint metro region, Nashville and Clarksville. Households in the bottom fifth of earnings might expect their children to have a 5 or 6% chance of moving into the top fifth of household earners in their lifetime. Economic mobility is a part of the nation's heritage and success. Data shows that upward mobility, income mobility, varies substantially within the United States. The Equality of Opportunity Project finds that areas with greater income mobility tend to have these 5 characteristics: less segregation, less income inequality, better schools, greater social capital, and more stable families. What are the odds of lifetime economic mobility in our region? Households in the middle income range may see the prospects of their children falling just slightly from the mid-range of earners in their lifetime. Parents at the 25th percentile of income may expect to see their children move upward into the 38th percentile. Our region has assets and institutions and desire by individuals to better themselves. The challenge is for the region to perform as well and better than even our peer regions do. Poverty and lack of opportunity and mobility are very real phenomenon in our region. And poverty is multifaceted, from shortcomings in housing, in earnings, in education, in access, and in health. Beginning with the first vital signs, it became clear that there are challenges in the health status and health behaviors of our population. The challenge is manifested in many ways, from productivity to cost to society to individual quality of life. In Vital Signs 2014, this region is reported as rank number 46 out of 50 large metros for fitness. Overweight and obese populations present those very challenges that interrelate to much about our region and its behaviors and its environment. Health behaviors and choices form one element of the spectrum of challenge. Impacts of health-related habits translate to challenges all across our region. Here, the area is 8.2% above the national target for obesity and 10% higher than the goal for smokers as a means to reduce matters with health implications. At the same time, healthy eating habits fall short of national goals across our region for a host of reasons, suggesting a host of solutions to the challenge. Some of our health challenges are tied to personal choice. Some are a part of the options that are available to individuals. As the region has grown, so also has our movement in commuting from place to place. The components of the joint metro region see a great deal of daily travel from place to place, from home to work, to shop, to school, and elsewhere. Vehicle traffic is growing, and it has implications for time, for health, and for cost that we all contend with. The cost of commuting is a daily challenge in our region. Vital Signs 2014 explores in even greater depth the seriousness of the challenge and what it means. Here, Nashville ranks 11th among large metros for annual congestion per commuter, 8th highest in excess fuel consumption, 11th in annual hours lost in traffic, and 7th in excess CO2 at peak travel. Travel and mobility are not isolated. These are very tangibly related to other challenges noted in Vital Signs: health, economic mobility, access, and overall quality of place and life. This brief snapshot of data on Vital Signs closes on an important point. Here, consider the bottom of this slide. It's a comparison with just Denver and Nashville at the bottom, for instance. Nashville area households spend somewhat less than Denver households on housing. Here, just under 24% of income, and our situation looks comparatively attractive. When the cost of travel and commuting are factored in, one, they alone cost somewhat more here than elsewhere. And our basic cost of living advantage, which we saw as a key asset just a few slides back, evaporates. In short, housing and transit costs, when combined, put at risk our region's advantages and attractiveness. And here that only considers the economic cost. A key feature of Vital Signs is to combine good data, good narrative, and then what the population of our region has to say about these matters. In the region-wide poll, fully 2/3 of respondents stated support of pooling tax resources to address priority areas such as those now highlighted in Vital Signs. Nearly half indicated support for tax increase if it addresses the priority areas most needful for the region. And lastly, the majority, in fact 90%, said they support local governments working together in the region on the key areas important to the region. It's been a pleasure from the Research Center at the Nashville Area Chamber to work on Vital Signs 2014. There's much, much more in the full report that can stimulate much observation and discussion. The support, encouragement, along with the action relate to the important topics, illustrating not just how important the indicators are, but how our region can benefit from the understanding and the solutions that stem from them.
I know that college tuition continues to go up, and the students seem to be reducing, getting a reduction in what they actually earn from that education. So that concerns me that education is that important, and yet it's so costly.
Okay, and as a college president, I'd love to respond to all of that. But there is at least an impression of the expense of education, and there are some reports that come out every once in a while that say, oh, it's just not worth it. Well, a bachelor's degree is still worth about $1 million in your lifetime. The average indebtedness, I don't know for other institutions, at Lipscomb, it's about $18,000. So the debt is about the cost of a used Honda Accord for a return that's $1 million over your lifetime. We've got to be really careful as we interpret that, but you're right, it is costly, and there are people that can't afford it, and we've got to figure out, if we meet these objectives, how to make that happen.
This is something I hear every single day in my
Okay.
community, and that is transportation. And the thing that jumps off the page is that housing, transportation cost, and how we compare to those other cities we compete with. And, you know, this is the time that we need to start looking at dedicated funding for transit. Everybody else has that we compete with. So it's a glaring deficit we have, is that we haven't attacked that yet. I mean, we have those conversations, but it's time to step out and do something about it.
Let's get 2 or 3 more comments on transportation. Anybody have a reaction to that piece in your communities, from your people? Yes, Kim.
Well, I would just say the thing that I think jumps out at me, and I think it's something that we all know to be true, but now it's something that has been proven to us, and that is that all of these communities want us to work together in a regional cooperative manner to try to provide those transportation needs. And I think that is exciting for all of us, because it just, I think, establishes the point that we all know is true, so we can move forward in a regional cooperative manner to provide our citizens with the transportation needs they need.
I was sitting at dinner last night with someone who has an office in Nashville and an office in Southern California, where I moved from 9 years ago. And she said, I really like Southern California better than Nashville. And I politely said, you're crazy. And I said, the thing I like most about Nashville is we don't have the 405 freeway. I drive in from the airport to where I used to live. It's about 2.5 hours on a bad day. But there's the risk we will be like that if we don't do something extraordinarily unusual. And so if there's some support regionally, if there's an interest on the part of constituents, it really does lay open to us opportunity to maybe be a little bit more dramatic.
If you look at all the other cities that we compare ourselves to,
Right.
Atlanta and Charlotte and Denver and all, they've made the hard decisions and gone on and found the dedicated funding. We're going to be that size of those cities soon, before we know it. And I think it's time for this group to really, as Ken said, let's find some dedicated and support it. And I know it might not be the most popular thing, but it's something that this community, this region is going to have to address, and it's time to start doing it.
How do you as mayors make that call when, well, if we were 20 years ago, my sense is there would be a lot more in terms of federal assistance. The state might be able to be much more helpful. Now, 20 years later, we haven't done it. We're not a Portland, we're not a whatever, but we still got to come up with the money to do it. How does that play in your worlds?
I think we as an organization need to be speaking with one voice about dedicated funding. We need to be working out our game plan right now to what we will take to the legislature in January and February of next year. We've talked around this issue now for 3 or 4 years. And I think it's incumbent upon us, those who will sit in these seats after us will look back at what we have not done unless we act very soon. And I think we can, if we speak with one voice, that voice will much more likely be heard than what we do unilaterally. So it's time that we came together and put forward a formula for dedicated funding source now.
So why don't you help me imagine what that would be like, and then some other people will contribute to the conversation. How do we get there if that is a goal we accept?
Well, it's going to begin here. I don't think the legislature on their own will do that. I think they are looking for some guidance from local officials. It'll have to start with us, and I think we need to go from the theoretical to the practical at this point. Philip's right in the sense that there obviously will be some pushback, but I look at this data. It shows that over the next 20 years, commuting times will double in Greater Nashville. I already have people in Robertson County who are driving an hour each way. So I mean, that's just to me that's a game stopper. It's just incumbent upon us to make sure we go forward with the plan. And I'm not saying it's going to be approved the first year, but if we're all singing the same song from the same page, eventually that message will be heard. But it'll take a while to do it, and that time is right now.
We're going to have to come up with some strategic plans on how to get that dedicated funding, because as we know, we already have two hurdles. One is we've already been told, unless there's something changed, that the gas tax is out, which made sense to a lot of us when we met a couple of years ago. It seemed like that was a popular approach. And then the other issue, of course, is the wheel tax. And right now, the wheel tax can go to referendum, and a lot of counties will get the votes, get the names on the list to go to referendum, and then we end up not unified, but divided as far as income. So we need to look at those, put some strategies together, because right now we've addressed the types of income revenues that we can at least try to tap, but it seems like we haven't got past the hurdles that we know are there.
I'm from Hendersonville. My city hall is less than 19 miles from Nashville City Hall. The folks in Hendersonville, about 60% of them leave Hendersonville every morning and come to Nashville. That's over an hour-long commute both ways. We've talked around the subject, about the subject. We have got to develop a transit plan that works regionally. And irregardless of what people think about the AMP, that's one of the connections that my folks are worried about. How do we get from Hendersonville to Nashville, and then Nashville to points therein? This idea of transit has to happen. The widening of the Northeast Corridor is right now on the 2035 plan with the Department of Transportation. That's 20 years from now. If we added 2 lanes both ways today, it operate at a level of service of F. Too many commuters, not enough participation. For those that traveled with us to Denver, we saw what Denver did. They put a referendum on the ballot that said, out to this corridor, we're going to ask you, do you want to add an additional lane of traffic, or do you want to invest in the community and build some form of light rail? And that was the premise for where Denver took off. And I think we're at a point where we've got to make those types of decisions. Do we want to add a lane to Franklin? And the minute it opens up, it operates at a level of service of F. Or do we want to invest in the future and do some form of bus rapid transit or light rail where we add a car for more population, where we add another trip for more population? The road builders won't like this until they start building rail. But we have to find a way. The city of Hendersonville will be stagnant if we're immobile.
Okay, so transportation relates to our vitality. Do you folks, you're a little bit passionate about this piece of it. Do you find your constituents are just as passionate?
2/3 of the people that participated say that they're willing to fund transit. So I think that's a good thing. I want to springboard off what Scott said also. I think we all get in the mode of all we're talking about is bus rapid transit or light rail and so on, but we can't forget that there are other options out there. And one that would help us immensely is just carpooling. And that's cheap. Van pools, that's the cheapest way to implement it also. So we have to be looking at multimodal options in this transportation plan that Scott mentioned.
So is there a mechanism for you to do this? I'm just not familiar with it, but is there a caucus, and do you meet every 2 weeks? And how do you get this done, Mayor?
Well, I think that the mechanism is the mayor's caucus. And I think one of the things that is incumbent on all of us, and I think it's going to be a bigger issue each year going out, is Middle Tennessee needs to speak up for itself. Middle Tennessee is the economic engine for the state. Middle Tennessee is leading in so many different ways, and the future of the state, as much as our own futures here in Middle Tennessee, is dependent upon our continued prosperity, our continued ability to function. And I think the rest of the state will look to see how this area, which has had some dynamic success for the past few years, responds and how it prepares for the future. I can tell you this because we're sitting in this building that when you put things off, when you don't do things when you can, they get more expensive. This building we built during the depths of the recession, and a lot of people question the judgment behind that. But it would be easily somewhere between $50 and $70 million more to build this building now. I often say that a city's got to have enough confidence in itself to invest in itself, and I think this region should have that confidence too. This is one of the great regions of the entire country, and it's one where we're blessed with all these opportunities and all these possibilities, but they only come to fruition if you're willing to make the investments. It's like your own kids. You have to invest in their futures, invest in what they can become, and that's what we need to do with our region. I also think it's important that we need to stress to the state, because I think this is becoming a state issue, that the state has to start thinking very seriously about transit and to have solutions for urban, suburban areas. The state is changing. And if we don't do that, I think that's going to hurt the state in the long run, and it should be a very cooperative relationship between the local governments and the state governments to accomplish these things together. It shouldn't be an acrimonious one. It shouldn't be a partisan one. It shouldn't be one dictated by outside forces. It shouldn't be one dictated by campaign contributions. It should be dictated by what's good for the people. And these folks in this room here with me get it more than anybody else, because they do it every day. They talk to the people every day, and they know that the polls that were cited in this study are right. The people of this region, the people of this city, if you ask them, do they want transit, they say overwhelmingly, we do. But it's not that simple. So we know what we have to do. We have to stick together. We got to work for what's right. We got to invest in ourselves, and we got to be confident. And we have every reason to be confident. We're living in a really special place.
Good job. Amen. Somebody else on transit. It occurs to me that one of the really challenges we have is moving from kind of the individualism in our nation, which we have taken such pride in, or the pride in a particular city, or the pride in a particular whatever, and we're forced to collaborate, which is not always easy or something we have much experience with. One of my colleagues just completed not too long ago the allocation of water in the Colorado River Basin. Now think about that. 7 states, 2 countries, I don't know how many gazillions of people. That's a problem that no one can do alone and can only get handled if everybody works in a very unusual way. This might be that for us as well.
Yeah, I just noticed statistics on the obesity rates and where we rank nationally.
And that hits you in what way?
In a way that, of course, that affects healthcare and a lot of cost. And even our educational system, the lower educational system, how we teach our kids about nutrition, and so they can somewhat counter what they probably get at home in some cases.
I think, too, the health thing kind of jumped out at me that I know this region, the Middle Tennessee region, as Mayor Cardine has lead the charge on it, has done a lot of things, promotion. With his walk, I know in Sumner County we've done a lot of things. We just finished up a great event this past Saturday. It seems like the schools are encouraging more, we're all doing, but don't seem like we're making that much of a difference in overall numbers. That kind of jumped out at me that we're still, 46th, and there has been a tremendous amount of effort, and I don't know what else we can do. I'd be open there for our community to know what more we can do in our community to try to help it, but it seems like the effort is there, but the results are not coming, and I'd just like to know what more we can do to try to get those results, to get us on down. I'd love to see us down in the 30s or 20s.
So maybe an assignment for the action team next year would be to say, not only identify the challenge for us and understand it, but bring to us ideas that are going to be helpful in solving it, perhaps things that go beyond what we have thought about before. Great suggestion.
we're already talking about problems from transportation. We're talking about problems with education as far as high school and college and secondary, post-secondary. As those workers come in, I mean, we've got to get them here, and then once they get here, we got to build houses. We got to make sure they can get around. I mean, this creates a big problem for us, but it's also opportunity. But that is shocking when you look at 2016. We're almost 18,000 short when it comes to filling jobs. I mean, we've got some work to do.
So it calls for a level of collaboration that I haven't seen, and that's the collaboration between the entire education sector, which is a huge sector in Middle Tennessee, and the workplace world, and maybe some coordination and some work that we are not used to doing. You know, we love our ivory tower, and we love the safety of a campus and the wonders of higher education, but we're really effective when we can educate a student, put them in a job, and have them contributing to the tax rolls a few months later. So that's a level of collaboration that we may be called to. Okay, we have 4 minutes left. Let me ask you this. Just very quickly, make suggestions on what you think this caucus could do in the next 12 months and how any help could be provided by Vital Signs. What in the next 12 months can you do, and what help can we provide?
Just get together as a group for a lunch before the session begins and talk about our concerns and talk about these issues here and let them know what we're going through and what our concerns are. That'd be a great thing to do.
And
I think they would show up. That'd be a good thing to do.
Has that been done before, you know of?
No, I don't think so. We got to do it.
Great. Okay, one good idea, another good idea. Somebody else. What do we do in the next 12 months? Yes.
The Mayor's Caucus, MPO, RTA, GNRC, all the groups, we all need to get together and have that one common theme that we need to find a dedicated funding. We all need to get committed, go back to our communities, and be willing to lead that charge. And if we don't get committed next 12 months, I don't see it happening, because now's the time to do it. So we all need to here today get committed, get all the groups we're involved in, and let's move forward and come up with a plan. And it's going to take meeting more than we have, but it's what we're going to have to do to get it done.
Let me share one thing with you that you may not know about. The Civic Leadership Institute at Lipscomb, beginning about 3 years ago, I think, started something called the Transit Academy. There have been probably 30 people and maybe 3 or 4 different classes that have gone through that. So there are a group of 100, 125 people in Middle Tennessee that have literally spent months studying the transportation issue and are prepared to be helpful to you. They'll know what you're talking about. They live in your areas, your counties, your cities, and if you need help calling on them, let us know. We really thought that looking down the road, in order to give you the kind of courage and foundation you needed, there needed to be some people who understood this issue really well, and they're now there and available to you. So let me close with this. I used to teach conflict resolution. That was my career before I came to Lipscomb, and I used to make this illustration that I think applies to all of us. You know, if you think of America, you know how we resolve conflict? At least for the first couple of 100 years, we just moved further west. I mean, think about it. You didn't like your colony, you moved west, started a new one. Didn't like that, you moved west. But I spent 19 years looking over the pier in Malibu, California, and one of the realities is you can't move any further west. And so the reality is you have to turn and figure out how to do something that isn't always in our character, and that's to be a whole lot more creative and collaborative. And maybe on these kinds of issues, we can't move any further west. We can't just create a new colony. We have to turn and together do some marvelous things. I'm confident you can do that. Thank you for participating in this short discussion.
Dr. Lauer, thanks a lot. Garrett, thank you for your presentation. And one additional thank you again to the Vital Signs Action Team, and a special call out to my Vice Chair, Chris Holmes, who has been just amazing. And I don't know that I could be standing here if he wasn't sitting over there. So thanks a lot. Each of you has a copy of today's report. And before we close this afternoon, I want to just reemphasize a few points. Our region has tremendous assets. It's very clear. And let me just read from the headline from this year's report. Over the last year, the nation has caught on to what we already know. Life is good in Middle Tennessee. We've got a diverse economy, a low cost of living, increasing and increased purchasing power of our residents, and the engagement of our residents in civic life in our communities. We're also a region that benefits from the synergies that arise from the proximity of the Nashville and Clarksville MSAs. So we've got an awful lot to celebrate in our region. But there's always that but. There are some key threats to the continued economic prosperity of our region. We're going to need to ensure that more of our residents have the education they need to compete for the jobs that are coming to the region. Employers' demands are increasing, and we don't want the region to lose out on key business expansions or relocations. And what's also clear is that our residents living in poverty are less likely to have the education they need to obtain the jobs in the region. We also know that a healthy workforce is a productive workforce. Our residents are less likely to engage in physical activities and to choose healthy food options. We're most likely to smoke and be overweight and obese compared to our peers. And lastly, if we don't do something about transportation, we're all going to be in a world of hurt. Our ability to move around the region is deteriorating, and will continue to do so unless we take some dramatic action soon. Declining mobility doesn't just inconvenience us, it's really a barrier to economic development. Fortunately, there is tremendous opportunity to address the issues that we're facing. Our residents have expressed a real willingness to not only work together to address priority issues, but to pool resources as well. It's going to be up to all of us to leverage these assets to maintain our position as a growing and prosperous region. On behalf of the Action Team, I want to again thank you for your partnership, for allowing us to present this information to you today. Thanks again.